on.
Hi, my name is Jessica Jones.
And I'm Niara Savage, and we are going to be presenting on trauma. So, what is trauma? Trauma can be defined as a deeply disturbing or distressing event that invokes some form of emotional response. Examples of trauma include a wide variety of experiences, such as losing a loved one, battling an illness, experiencing a car accident, and at the most extreme level, experiencing things like rape and torture. When talking about trauma, it's important to remember that it falls on a spectrum. And so there's a wide variety of events that could basically be at a different level of severity depending on the person who's experiencing the trauma and how they perceive it. And so that's why when we talk about trauma, these are more guidelines as to what trauma is as opposed to absolute hard and fast rules. Also, trauma tends to lead to triggers which bring up past experiences. Symptoms of trauma include emotional symptoms such as anger, persistent feelings of sadness and despair, flashbacks, and also overall unpredictable emotions. Symptoms of trauma can also spread over into the physical realm and manifest in the form of nausea and headaches. People who have experienced trauma often perceive an altered sense of shame and experience a sense of isolation and hopelessness.
So the effects of trauma is really essential to everyday life. It has been stated that trauma is the leading cause of death in ages up to 45, and the fourth leading cause of death for overall ages. There has been stated that there is 40,000 suicide and homicidal situations each year. It's 70% of adults that have experienced trauma, and 20% of that 70% has been exposed to post-traumatic stress disorder or other traumatic disorders. So it's very common within everyday life.
So types of trauma can be divided into a variety of different categories. For example, complex trauma is a trauma that happens repeatedly over and over, and the results of the trauma basically are cumulative and build up over time. A developmental trauma is basically a term that's reserved for a trauma that takes place in the first 3 years of life. And finally, an acute trauma is defined as a singular, overwhelming, or stressful life event.
But at least it's part of the trauma.
Okay, one of the disorders associated with trauma is post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder is